There's a specific capability that has existed on Linux desktops for years, that Windows users have been requesting through various channels for about as long, and that Microsoft has either not delivered or has delivered only in limited forms that do not match what Linux offers. The capability is not a single feature. It is a general approach to window management, workspace organization, and system configurability that treats the user as capable of making their own decisions about how their computer should work. The specific implementations vary across Linux desktop environments, but the general principle that the user should have extensive and meaningful control over the behavior of their desktop has been a consistent feature of the Linux desktop tradition. Windows has moved, over the last decade, away from this principle, progressively, restricting what users can configure and increasing the set of behaviors that are fixed by the operating system. The gap between what Linux offers and what Windows offers, in terms of desktop customization and control, has widened rather than narrowed. And in 2026, the gap has reached a point where specific Linux capabilities are, I think fairly, called features that Windows users have been asking for and have not received. I want to walk you through what some of these capabilities are, why they matter, why Windows has not matched them, and what the broader implications are for users who value this kind of control. Let me start with specific examples of the capabilities I'm talking about. The first example is tiling window management. Tiling window managers automatically arrange windows on the screen so that they do not overlap, organizing them in specific patterns that can be controlled through keyboard shortcuts. The user can efficiently organize many windows, move between them quickly, and have all visible windows fully usable at once. Linux has tiling window managers that have existed for decades, including i3, Sway, Awesome, and others. And tiling functionality is also integrated into mainstream desktop environments like KDE Plasma and GNOME through various extensions. Windows 11 has some tiling-like functionality through the Snap Layouts feature, but the Windows implementation is substantially less capable than what Linux offers. Snap Layouts provides a limited set of predefined layouts and a limited set of gestures for triggering them. The user cannot define custom layouts, cannot bind specific windows to specific positions permanently, and cannot use the keyboard to control window placement in the way that Linux tiling window managers allow. For users who want serious tiling functionality, Windows requires third-party tools that add substantial complexity and that work imperfectly. The second example is virtual workspace management. Linux desktops have had multiple workspaces for decades, and the specific implementations have been highly configurable. Users can typically set the number of workspaces, assign applications to specific workspaces, navigate between workspaces with keyboard shortcuts, and move windows between workspaces freely. KDE Plasma's activities, which I mentioned in another video, take this further by allowing each activity to have its own workspace configuration. Windows has virtual desktops, but the Windows implementation has specific limitations. The number of desktops is limited, the specific configuration is less flexible, and the keyboard shortcuts are less powerful. The relationship between applications and desktops is less persistent. For users who want serious workspace organization, the Windows implementation is adequate but not competitive with what Linux offers. The third example is keyboard-driven workflow. Linux desktops in general offer extensive keyboard shortcut customization. Every action that the desktop can perform can typically be bound to a keyboard shortcut, and the shortcuts can be customized to match the user's preferences. Users who prefer keyboard-driven workflows can configure their desktop to be controlled almost entirely through the keyboard, with the mouse rarely needed. Windows has keyboard shortcuts, but the customization is more limited. Many actions cannot have custom shortcuts assigned. The specific shortcuts that Windows provides are fixed, and the user cannot easily change them. Third-party tools can extend keyboard customization, but they work around rather than with the operating system. The fourth example is the ability to completely change the look and behavior of the desktop. Linux allows users to replace their entire desktop environment if they want. A user running GNOME who prefers KDE Plasma can install KDE and switch. A user who wants a specific minimalist window manager can install one. The choice is available and supported. Windows does not allow this. The Windows desktop is built into the operating system and cannot be swapped for an alternative. Users who want a different desktop experience can apply specific customizations through third-party tools, but they cannot replace the core desktop environment. The fifth example is the ability to control what runs at startup, what runs in the background, and what system resources are consumed by various processes. Linux provides extensive and usable tools for this kind of system administration. The user can see what is running, what is using resources, and can intervene to change what runs. The tools are accessible to technical users and, with some learning, to general users. Windows has similar capabilities, but they are scattered across different tools, some of which are not accessible to general users. Task Manager provides some visibility, Settings provides other controls, Services provides others, and Task Scheduler provides others. The user, who wants a comprehensive view of what their system is doing, has to use multiple tools and cross-reference the information. The specific controls that each tool provides are often less complete than what Linux offers. The sixth example is package management and software installation. Linux has integrated package management systems that handle all the software on the system through a consistent interface. Installation, updates, removal, and dependency management all happen through the same mechanism. The user has comprehensive visibility into what is installed and can manage it coherently. Windows has fragmented software management. Some software comes from the Microsoft Store. Some comes from Wingit, Microsoft's newer command line package manager. Some comes from standalone installers. Some updates through Windows Update, some updates through application-specific mechanisms. The user who wants to understand what software is installed and keep it updated has to use multiple systems, and the specific coverage of each system is incomplete. These examples, taken together, describe a general pattern. Linux desktops give users more comprehensive, more unified, and more powerful control over their computing environment than Windows provides. The specific mechanisms vary, but the general principle of user control is more deeply embedded in Linux than in Windows. Why has Windows not matched these capabilities? The reasons are commercial and strategic rather than technical. Microsoft could, if the company chose, build a more configurable Windows. The engineering challenges are not insurmountable. The company has chosen not to because the commercial benefits of giving users more control are less clear than the commercial benefits of maintaining tight control over the desktop experience. A more configurable Windows would be harder to support. Users who customize extensively generate more support cases. The support cost would be real. A more configurable Windows would be harder to integrate with Microsoft's commercial services. Features like OneDrive integration, Microsoft 365 integration, and the advertising placements in the Start menu all depend on specific desktop configurations that remain consistent. Users who could extensively modify the desktop could remove the integrations, which would reduce Microsoft's commercial benefit. A more configurable Windows would be harder to use as a platform for distributing new features. Microsoft's regular updates to Windows include feature additions that assume specific desktop behaviors. Users who had configured their desktops extensively might find these updates broken their configurations, which would generate complaints and support issues. A more configurable Windows would be harder to target for advertising and other commercial relationships. The specific placements of advertising, suggestions, and prompts depend on specific desktop configurations being stable. For these reasons, Microsoft has moved in the direction of less configurability rather than more. The Windows desktop is more constrained in 2026 than it was in 2016, and the direction is clearly toward even less configurability rather than more. For users who value desktop configurability, the implication is that Windows is not the right platform. The specific configurability that Linux offers is, for users who care about this, a substantial reason to consider Linux. Users who have felt frustrated by the increasing constraints of Windows have a specific alternative available that is aligned with the values they care about. For users who do not care about extensive configurability, the implication is less direct. The constrained Windows desktop works fine for users who do not want to customize it. The constraint is only a cost to users who want the customization. Subscribe for the next video, which is a detailed walkthrough of the specific customizations that KDE Plasma and GNOME offer, with demonstrations of how each is used and the specific workflows that the customizations enable. And in the comments, tell me what customization you have wanted on Windows that was not available. The specific desires that users have across many users reveal what matters most in desktop computing, and the aggregate picture is useful for understanding why Linux has been gaining ground in this dimension. Word count, 2624.